So I'm going to switch over to one that I just kind of finished while my other one's drying to kind of point out some areas here that you kind of want to watch. Make sure that every edge is actually, I don't want to touch this because it's still wet, every edge over here is actually tucked in and that there is a nice coating of the gel medium on there so that it'll seal down. Now as I bring this closer to the screen, you'll notice that there are going to be some little wrinkles in there, and those wrinkles are something that we want to hold on to. The next video below this will show you what your next step should be to try and achieve more of an actual tree appearance and not just a crumbled up piece of paper. So as you guys move through this demonstration, pause the videos and pause the areas where you feel is necessary to stop and move forward with the demonstration by just clicking the video that's right below this. Okay, so this is all dry now. This is the one I left off with the first video. I set it back there on the heater, so you know, I'm not 100% sure how many of you guys will actually get to this point, but I want to make this so that at least you guys could kind of see what the next step actually was. Again, you don't want to start this if your tissue paper or your gel medium is still wet or it has a very cold feeling to it, because the next step won't work out and it'll actually cause more of a mess, and the appearance won't be really what you probably wanted it to appear like. So pause this video, make sure you can get the list of the materials that'll show up real shortly, and we'll move forward with the demonstration. Alright, so you guys are back. As you can see, what we're going to be using is something called oil pastels. Now I have to kind of preface this that they are kind of weird looking, and if you've never used these before, it might be a little bit difficult to understand exactly what the purpose of them are. But these are the drawing materials that obviously are made out of oil. So you want to make sure that this isn't something that's going to rub up against your clothing, because oil does not come out. Oil paints, oil pastels will not come out of your clothing. Not that I think you guys are going to be coloring on yourself, but this does, I mean, have the possibility of staining your clothes, so make sure that that isn't something that happens. Now, what we're going to be doing with this oil pastel is actually just going over some of the texture so that stuff that is raised up actually looks like it's raised up, and the stuff that's far down actually looks like it's far down. Now, I'm just going to start off with a black oil pastel and just very lightly scratch over this, just to kind of achieve a little shadow on one side. Alright? Then I'll kind of move up and very lightly scratch a little bit more bark lines without really pushing down too hard at all. Okay? Now, this might not necessarily right off the bat look like a tree, okay? But this is where your paintbrush and a little bit of water can come in, and you can blend these colors. Whoa, you don't want to use a lot of water. You can blend this oil really quickly just by adding a little bit of a drip to it. Now, one thing that you want to watch out for is the harder that you push on the oil pastel, the more oil that gets pushed onto the piece of paper. Obviously that makes sense, but what will happen is if you put too much of that oil on, it'll end up making it appear too dark. So when you kind of play around with your black or your brown oil pastels, experiment with the different amounts of pressure. Now, another thing that is also a really good habit to keep in mind is to make sure that you don't take off your taped borders, because you're going to be going over this with just water and trying to blend some of the colors a little bit. There are going to be drip marks, and unfortunately those drip marks will lead to some very messy borders as you start to blend away some of that color. Now I can come in here and add a little bit of brown if I want, and actually I'll hold this up so you guys can see. Just by very lightly going over. I realize on the screen it's probably not picking up where it looks black, but I can also kind of play around just by very lightly going over and brushing that oil in. Now eventually you can use too much oil pastel and all of this texture will go away. But what we're trying to do here is we're trying to separate background from foreground by making things that are closer to us not only appear more in detail, but have a more defined texture. And one of the ways that we're doing that is by using the oil pastel or a non-traditional painting material to pop out that technique that we've used with the gel medium and the tissue paper on the video right before this. Like I said earlier, you might not be able to get this far in one day, but this is what we will be approaching on the days coming up, completing this painting. So take a look through the examples that I've hung up on the bulletin boards to double check to make sure that you're achieving the right thing. You know, if you feel like you need a scrap piece of paper to work on, we have plenty of that you guys have been using to mix up your colors, so of course you can always go ahead and use that. And when I get back Monday, I'll kind of see where we're at and we'll move forward from there. I look forward to what you guys can complete, but more importantly, I look forward to hearing your experiences about using these techniques that we kind of played around with and we experimented, and seeing what you guys can actually get from practicing this. So good luck today, and I hope everything works out.